now I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Something I can't tell. So it would kind of be silly for me to sit here and talk to myself. So hopefully you'll pop down in the chat below and say hi and let me know who's here and let me know you can hear me. And if you can't hear me, let me know. It'd be kind of silly to sit here and just talk to myself, but I might have to. We'll see. It's definitely past that time. It's 5 minutes to 6, so we're not getting started here. Do you know how you look? Do you know you look like Glenn Beck? Well, Glenn Beck, he always says he's a fatty fat fatso, and I could lose some weight. Is that is that the comparison, or is it just all the white hair and the white goatee? I used to listen to him years ago when he had, gosh, that was back around 2000, 2001, 2002, and he had what he called more on trivia. So if you're a Glenn Beck watcher, Paul, let me know if you remember those days. It was a long time ago. He was just on the radio, and he was hilarious. So Bourbon 30, Desert Hobo, nice to see you. Hey, just to be sure, you guys can hear me, right? Make sure you let me know. Otherwise, I could think I'm talking to myself here. Oh, good. All right, perfect. All right, there you go. Less shorts, more full lengths. All right. So actually, that's something I want to talk about tonight. And I'll give it a little bit. We're still early. It's not quite 6 o'clock, but I do want to talk about that. William, hey, nice to see you. I am going to talk about that because I would like to do more longs. However, I did something really silly. So some of you already know what that is. But and so the shorts, those are, oh gosh. Well, I might as well get started. The heck with it, right? I mean, you guys are here. Let's do it. Laser. I have that down to talk about it. So first of all, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And yes, it is. It's Bourbon 30. So it's after hours. We're all adults here, right? This is my favorite mug. I don't know if you can see that. All right. First, let's talk about longs and shorts. So I'm not a fan of shorts, just so you know. Um, Shorts have their place, I think. However, I retired from my job in April, and oh, I'm glad you love the logo, and I'll try to answer as I go. But yes, t-shirts are available. But so I, I retired in April, and all I was going to do was just full time YouTube. And of course, run my sawmill. I can't do YouTube if I'm not running my sawmill. So the idea was that I would just run the sawmill. That was my plan all along. It's been my plan for years. YouTube became part of the plan about a year and a half ago. Even though I'd been doing it for a dozen years, I really wasn't doing it seriously with the intent of really making a lot of videos for you guys. It was kind of a grandkids thing and thing for my customers. And so anyway, I did that in April, but a job opportunity came along and it was one of those jobs that I just couldn't turn it down. And you know what? To be honest with you, I don't plan on doing it forever. A year at least, maybe a little bit longer to carry me into the spring afterwards. It's all really dependent on how things go. But it was just one of those jobs that came along that I just really couldn't pass up. And if you're close to retirement, or if you're already retired, you know the drill already, right? You make all the plans, you got everything ready to go, and then an opportunity comes along to set you up just a little bit better for retirement. So that's what it was. And the problem is that it took me away from the ability to put out two or three videos a week like I was doing for a long time. And I decided, well, I would try to do 2 a week. And I really kept to that for a while. And then this last week, I wasn't able to do it. And honestly, at this point, the shorts are kind of, so there's two types of shorts, and I should tell you about those too. Shorts are kind of like advertising for the long form videos. YouTube has come out with this new shorts platform, which is called remixes. And a remix is a 15-second short that you can't edit. You can cut it out of a video on YouTube, and then YouTube links back to the video. So what that means is that you'll see at the bottom of a remix short, it'll say created by the old Jarhead or created by somebody, whoever did it. And that is actually a link to the full length video. And so YouTube allows you to do that. And it's just kind of a way to advertise. And now I also do some other shorts. And honestly, guys, that's been an experiment with kind of YouTube's really pushing for shorts. And I decided to try experimenting with shorts. I think Craig had asked me the Kilted Sawyer, isn't that? I think that is Craig. I'm terrible with names, guys, but so that's really what that's all about. YouTube's really pushing for those. I am not a shorts creator. I don't intend to keep doing them. I will do them as advertising for my longs, but longs is where it's at for me, because honestly, I can't give you what I want to give you in a short form. It just doesn't. I'd rather talk about sawmilling and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and try to answer your questions and just share with you what I do. It's a little different. It's not like a lot of the sawmill channels out there. So that's what that's all about. So more longs. I agree 100%. That's my mission. It will happen. The rest of this year, we'll see how it goes. It'll be at least one a week. Could be two sometimes, depending on the scenarios and things that happen and how much editing time I have. To be honest, it takes me about 12 hours to edit a video. So it's crazy. But and as a result, it means it's harder to do when you're working full time. So okay, thanks everyone for being here. Let me kind of work back a little bit through the chat so I can see who said what and asked me what before I keep going. T-shirts, yes. Actually, on my YouTube channel, as well as every video, and if you watch on a phone, you may not see this as readily, but at the bottom, even on this one, when this, after we finish the live, there will be a link to the store. Now, I will tell you, I really like the mugs. I really like the glasses. I think the shirts are very cool. They're thin though. So if you like the thinner style shirts, they're great. I love them. But I'm more of a heavy duty Carhartt kind of t-shirt guy. Those are not heavy duty Carhartt. So I'm just being honest with you. It's a merch thing, YouTube merch thing. There are different kind of merch stores out there. I've yet to find one that do a Gildan 5000 type t-shirt. So I think the t-shirts are really cool, but they are a thin material, so they're more of a summer t-shirt, just so you know. And I personally would like to get a pocket tee. One of my customers was in that business, and I've talked to him a couple times. I'm thinking about trying to do a much better shirt, but for now, I do have them, and there's some really cool mugs. It's bourbon 30 glass is on there. It's a beer glass size, though I have it say it's bourbon 30 on the back, and of course you got the old Jarhead logo. So those are all on there. So thank you for asking. All you got to do is look down below any video. You'll see the merchant store. If you click on any item, it'll take you to the store. Now there are two. So depending on the item you click on, if you click on the ones that say, I love the smell of sawdust in the morning, the orange, I love the smell of sawdust in the morning, that'll take you to one store. If you check on, I think it's the bourbon 30 mug or the glass, it'll take you to a different one. So just kind of be aware of that. The easiest thing to do, though, is you can go right to my YouTube page. You can find them there. So, okay, let's get back to some questions. I did see rum and Coke in there. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I used to do rum and Coke, but I switched to bourbon about 20 years ago, maybe 30, maybe more than that. Speaking of mugs, before I keep going, and thank you, Edward Reed. I appreciate that. I had to show you guys this. I don't know if you saw this in any of my other videos. Look at that. This was sent to me by Two Brothers Outdoors, and those guys are really cool. If you haven't checked their channel out, give it a check. when you get after you get off my live, right? Go check out Two Brothers Outdoors. So anyway, I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet, but I think I'm going to put it somewhere, that I can put uh, pens and things in, because I'm not going to drink out of it. It's spalted maple, right? It's just cool. All right. Anyway, here we go. Laser, I think, was the next one. Today, I actually pulled the bracket for the laser off the mill, went to Lowe's, found a bunch of nuts and bolts and screws for it, and I'm working on it. So, what I'm doing with the laser, and this is the laser was sent to me, so and I'll be getting into that in the video. It's a popular laser company. That's all they do. So it's a lot less expensive than if you buy like the Woodmiser laser. So anyway, I've got the laser, and I ordered the Woodmiser brackets. And the reason for that is that the cantilever heads, they don't make it easy to install a laser on a cantilever head. There's different ways you could do it, but I decided to use the Woodmiser way. So I asked them to send me all the mount for the laser. Well, they did. They sent me the mount, the cover, and the laser, the attachment to put the laser in itself, the whole 9 yards. No nuts and bolts. The instructions in the book are not the way these were. So they were great. They actually did send me a PDF of the instructions. So I have that. But I still had to go out and get all the nuts and bolts and kind of figure out how it all goes together. So I have that coming along. We're getting pretty close. I also have trouble with my hydraulics. And so those of you who've watched my channel, you might have noticed something. And let's see if you've noticed this. But in my videos, sometimes you'll actually see me reach up and grab the control switch that brings the head back, the forward and reverse on the head, and you'll see me hit it and bump the head back further back down the line. That's because it's not making a good electrical connection, and my hydraulics were not working. And when I bring it back closer to me, hydraulics would start working. So if you've ever wondered, when you see my latest videos, which are done a little while ago, so understand it takes a long time for me to get a video out. So it's about 12 hours of video in editing and all that kind of stuff. So my videos that you're seeing now are from the fall. So anyway, if you ever look at them, and the log is like, 6 feet in front of me, and I've got the head all the way back to where I am, back by the hydraulics, it's because the hydraulics weren't working. So I've done a whole bunch of testing, and I've been filming it for you. And we think we know what it is. And I have the part now to put in to fix it. And we're pretty sure that we've solved the problem, and all I've got to do is get that part put in, and we'll get the hydraulics running again, and I'll finish the laser install. I will bring all of that to you, and then I got to go mill up some awesome maple that you've seen. You just don't know it. So what maple have you seen? If you've seen any of my shorts, you will have seen some chainsaw milling. And one of those chainsaw milling videos was done in the front yard of somebody's house in the middle of town. So it's obviously not on the farm, not out in the woods anywhere. It's right in the middle of town. That log is still sitting quartered because as soon as I finished quartering up that log, it started to snow. And I was having hydraulics problems with the mill. So I said, look, let's leave it lay. It's been on the ground for 2 years. It's not going to make a lot of difference now, especially in the winter. I'll get my hydraulics fixed. And when the weather warms up, things get better, then I will come out and I'll finish it off for you. Well, guess what? It's going to be 11 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow morning. What the heck? I live in the desert. It should be 50 degrees out. This is ridiculous. So anyway, if anybody's got a way to fix the weather pattern, there you go. All right, let's see where we're at. That was laser, new logo t-shirts. I talked about rum and Coke. Hey, Craig's buddy, Dean, right? I think it's Dean. Glad I'm doing Sawmill channel. Thank you. Hey, I appreciate it. And you started one. So the Kilted Sawyer folks, he started a Sawmill channel recently too. So give him some love. Go over and check it out. It's a tough gig. I'll tell you, if you're interested in doing YouTube stuff, ask your questions. I'm happy to answer them because it's a lot tougher than some realize, I think. How often do I change my belts, and how do you tell when you need to? Great question. Okay, so Woodmiser probably has a rule. I've long since forgotten it. I periodically rotate my belts, and we're talking, I hope you're talking drive belt, not drive belts, sorry, the band wheel belts, the B57s. So if you don't know what he's talking about, if you're new to sawmills, it's a bandsaw mill. So you got the big wheels on either side, and the bandsaw rides on top of rubber belts in those, and those are B57s on the LT40. That's the part number. So I switch those out kind of every second or third band change, so they can get switched on a daily basis when I'm out on the job. And the reason for that is the drive side wears a lot faster than the idle side. So if you're doing a band change, it's not that big a deal because you're going to pull the belt off anyway. So if you don't know this, and you don't see this in my videos because I try to cut them down for you and condense stuff. And if you want to see a band change, I'm happy to do it. I'll have to get some cameras positioned for you and do one real live, the speed of an actual band change. But what I do when I do a band change, and this is, you have to understand, I mill 90% softwoods, a lot of pine. Pine has a lot of sap buildup, and one of the things that pine can do is it can build up under the band wheel belt itself and the band wheel groove. And I could get, quarter inch, a half inch long, or 3/4 inch long chunk of sap and sawdust built up underneath the band wheel belt. And you'll see that if you're running the mill, you'll see your belt, your band pressure will go from like 3,000 pounds, and it'll start going up 3,200, 3,400, 3,500, 3,600. And of course, you're dialing it back, and it goes up some more. That's because you've got that sawdust and pine building up underneath that belt. So when I do a band change, what I do is I go in, I take the band off, and then usually I'll spin the idle belt around, and I'll just feel it and make sure that any sawdust I can get off of it, I get off of it very, very quickly if I can. Then I go over to the drive side, and typically what you'll see me do, if you actually see it all, or you'll catch this sometimes in videos, is I'll go through and I'll run my hand over the whole thing, and I'm also feeling it, and I'll pull it off. I'll actually pull the band wheel belt off, and I'll check the groove itself. And if I see any chunks of pine sap and sawdust build up in the grooves, I'll have a little screwdriver or a nail or something, and I'll go in there and I'll get those out as quickly as I can, and then I'll put it back on. Well, usually about every second or third time, since I've got it off anyway, I'll switch it with the idle side. So I hope that answers your question. Drive belts are a lot longer. I think the first drive belt change is 100 hours. After that, I want to say you can go, gosh, I don't know, maybe 500 hours to a drive belt change. So those are different, but you have to tighten them periodically. And that's something you'll see in my videos. If you watch the Coeur d'Alene series, you would have noticed I talked about it. I did a short recently. It's kind of really just points you to the video, but I didn't actually film that very well, so I couldn't bring it to you. So just so you know, that's something else I've been asked to do. And I think when I finish doing the hydraulics maintenance and the laser adjustment, I think I'm going to do that drive belt tension and film that. And it's going to take a little work. But speaking of, I bought a new camera. So I have a third camera coming up that I think I should be able to capture actually doing that drive belt tension. Well, it's kind of tough to do, but I think with 3 cameras, I can get it for you. So we'll bring that to you too. All right, let's see. About speed. Okay, here we go. Talk to us about saw speed and knowing how to not max out wide cuts and filling up the gullet in bands to prevent wavy cuts. Boy, that's a good one. Do I have a post office box if I were to send you something? I don't have a post office box, but my email address is on YouTube. You can email me. Can't say I've had, well, I had somebody send me this. So if you message me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. And those of you that are on Instagram, thank you. I just broke 500 today. So I think it was yesterday actually, but I'm going to get to the speed thing here. I think that's a big one, but I want to catch up to some of the comments here before I do it. Hey, Arrowhead Woodsman, you made it. Awesome. Hopefully you're still here. I didn't think you were going to make it. So guys, if you don't know Arrowhead, he may or may not start a channel. Can't speak. Great guy that's actually been on my channel a long time. He's also on MeWe, where if you don't know about MeWe, My personal side is more on MeWe. I don't really, Facebook is more for the channel than anything else. But MeWe, I tend to do show and do more stuff over there. So he's on there. We chat back and forth. He's got an older mill. I think the first guy to put an old Jarhead sticker on his mill. So hats off to the old bro. Hey, and wait a minute, before I keep going, I see Two Brothers Outdoors. Did you guys see what I was showing earlier on here? I don't know, guys. If you don't notice, Two Brothers Outdoors right there in chat. So say hi to them. All right, let me keep going. I got to answer that first question, but I'll be putting the Woodmiser laser on my LT50 wide. Okay, good. Let's see. Do you think 45K is a fair price for? Okay, so let me go back. Oh, before I keep going, Dean just threw out a super sticker. So awesome, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That really helps out. I'll tell you guys, if you don't know, I make like $2 to $3 a day, sometimes less than $2 a day. So when someone gives me a super thanks or super sticker like that, hey, thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated. Okay, let me answer some questions here real quick before I miss them. So let me go back to speed. So talk about speed and knowing how to not max out wide cuts and filling up the gullet in bands to prevent wavy cuts. Boy, I got to tell you, speed is a big one. So when I started out with the LT10, speed was like, how hard you could push the mill. Um, and it was a feel thing. But when I got to the LT40, it wasn't like that anymore. You couldn't just push it, right? It's all controlled by a dial. So on Forestry Forum, I talked to a lot of guys there, and they said, 10 to 11 o'clock on softwoods, that's your number. Go figure it out. Have a great day. And, and they were good guys, and they helped out a lot. But it is a feel. So I typically run between 10:30 and 11 p.m. on the dial. So if you watch me in my videos, you'll notice that I kind of dial it up and back sometimes a little bit depending on how wide the cut is. If it's a narrower cut, maybe I'm milling 2x6s, or like lately the 1x4s, two at a time. I'll set that at like 11 p.m. or 10:45, somewhere around there. It's kind of rough, and boom, away I go, and I won't change it. I'll just rock and roll down the middle we go, and that's why you'll see me when I do the videos where I kind of quickly run through it, chunk, 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 down we go. I'm not touching the dial. I will come back, go down, pick the head up, come back, hit the down switch, let the simple set do its thing, and hit the forward switch and go. I'm not even touching the dial. But you can only do that on the narrower cuts. When you start to push the max of the mill, that's where things get different. So on wide cuts, now the max I can cut is just about 28 inches. And to do that, I have to push the log over the side supports and stuff it off to the side. So you're really pushing the mill because it's not a wide head. I don't have the LT40 wide. They didn't make those when I bought mine. So the between the actual side supports and the outside band guide wheel bearing, whatever the heck it's called, guide wheel, is 24 inches between the side supports and that. But the guide wheels themselves, 28 or 28 and a quarter inches. Okay. So if you push the log over far enough and you can get the mast past the log, you can cut just about 28 inches. But to do that, you can't go into that wide open. You just can't do it. So you dial way back. You enter the log slow because you don't want to put that big of a load on the band right off the bat. One of the things it does is it'll dive up or come down. It'll do what I call chatter. It'll jump up and down quite a bit on entry. So if you dial it back, slow your entry a little bit, you're going to get a half inch of that chatter or so, but it's not going to be too violent. Then you could start to work it up. But I may not get past 9 p.m., maybe even less. I've actually been around 7 p.m. on hard wide cuts. And I mean 7 p.m. on the dial. So if you look at a clock, 6 p.m. is straight down here. 7 p.m. is right over here. You're barely moving. But that's because I have a 26.5 horse head. So the big diesels, the 50 horse diesel, man, they probably don't slow down a whole lot because they have the power to clean all that sawdust out and to drag that band through the wood. So from a speed perspective, it really is about feel. You've got to watch the sawdust exiting the log. That's really important. Yellowhammer off of Forestry Forum, he's got a YouTube channel called Hobby Hardwoods Alabama. If you haven't seen that, the guy really knows what he's doing. And he actually talks about that sawdust exiting like that. Now, when he sits way back in the rear with like the LT70 guys, he's running an LT70, but if you watch me, I got to walk alongside a log. It's a little different. So I pay attention to what my sawdust is doing. I got to listen, even with the earplugs. I can hear how the motor's doing. I can tell if it's straining a little too much. I can watch how the band is exiting the log. Is it deflecting up or down? That kind of stuff. Now, if you've milled a lot, you start to get a feel for that. So two things I will tell you. Wider is better. Remember the old Pontiac commercials? Wider is better. Wider's better. So 1.5 inch bands on an LT40, it's gonna be better than 1.25 inches, absolutely. Thicker, if you've got the power to drive them, you got to move more sawdust. So you have to have the power to drive them. So I run the 1.5 inch, typically 7 degrees, but on really, really wide stuff, I switch to fours. Fours will dull fast. When you start running fours, the one thing you got to realize is when they decide they're not going to cut anymore, they're done. You might get that cut done, but don't try to push them. They just don't do it as well as, say, a 7 or a 10. And 10s are like a pocket knife utility grade for me. I use them when I have to. I don't use them otherwise. Now, a lot of guys ask about bands. I will tell you, find the band you're happy with and stick with it. I've got 10s, 9s, 7s, turbo 7s, 747s, 4-degree bands, bimetal bands, double hard bands. My preference is 7 degree, any 7 degree band with 4 degrees on the side for the wide cuts. The thing that I find with 10s, particularly on wide cuts, is they'll hump in the middle. So the band will enter the log and then it will rise up through the middle. And it might only be a 1/16 of an inch deflection, but if you're trying to produce the absolute best lumber you can, a 1/16 of an inch is too much. It's just not good. So by switching to fours, I found I got much better, much flatter surface on my wide cuts. You just can't run them as fast and you can't run them as long. You got to dial them back. If you can run a 7 at 10 degrees on the dial on a wider cut, you're running a 4 at 9.5 or 9. So it's just kind of one of those things you got to pay attention to. But they cut smooth and flat. They're great for the wide cuts. Okay. Let me see. And Dean, if you got any questions, shout them out there. So again, thank you for that super sticker. But if you got something you want to ask me, just throw it out there. You're number one on the list, buddy. So two brothers, we got you. Awesome to see Arrowhead. Wood Miser laser on the LT50. It's help. Okay, so and the only thing I mentioned about the laser difference is the Wood Miser laser. When I first looked into it, I think it was about $1,500. I think they're probably at least $1,000 today. Maybe they're still $1,500. The laser that I have, I want to say with the 12 volt to whatever the laser voltage is conversion, it's an Apenex laser, and I want to say it's 20 milliwatts. That whole setup, I think, is under $500, and it was like $100 for the stuff from Woodmiser to put it in. So that's why I went that route. It's like, come on, for $500 or $600, I could have a laser versus 1,500. To me, that's worth doing it. So, and Sawing with Sandy has done it as well. He really liked it. I'm going to tell you, when I get that laser on there, you're going to know whether it's useful or not, because I'll have it out of doors, because I'm always outdoors, and I'll let you know if I don't like it. And that's one of the things that I've told Apenex. I'm honest when I do my review. So if I don't like it, I'm going to tell you. All right. Let's see. Do you think 45K is a fair price for a 2004? Honestly, it depends on 2004. Looks like you said LT40. Well, 45K or LT70. I'm sorry, 45K for an LT70. Where's it at? I might want to take a look at it. If it's an LT70 with a diesel, not too many hours on the motor, in good shape, it might very well be worth that. I know a guy that paid close to that for an LT40 Super. So an LT70 in really good shape probably is. Southern Adirondack Outdoors. Gosh, I can't speak tonight. Must not have had enough bourbon. Good evening to you. Andy, did you get a belt tension gauge? So Andy, I have a. Now I'm curious why you're asking that question, because it could be because you knew my old one was cracked. So the LT40 comes with one. And the original one that my mill came with was a 3,000 pound gauge, period. It didn't go past 3,000 pounds. And so my mill's over 7 years old, just so you know. So 7 years plus ago, they had a 3,000 pound gauge. That's all they had. And it cracked. I had it cracked in multiple places. And I got to understand, I beat the heck out of this mill. And I drag it some crazy places, including to where my cabin is. So it gets beat up. But I did replace it. I got a new one. It was a kind of a pain in the butt to replace until I actually talked to them and found out a couple tricks to doing it. But I did get it replaced, and I put the new one on, which goes all the way to 4,000 pounds. So actually, if you see in my videos, in fact, maybe the one that went out Friday, if not the one that goes out this coming week, you'll actually see me tightening it up, and you'll notice that the dial is sitting up, at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, something like that. Whereas in the old days, the dial was way down at like 5 p.m. So just you might notice that, and that's because I have the new one on there. So all right, let's see. How do you do the math so fast when centering the pith? on the tape measure or with the mill? So first of all, I have done hundreds and hundreds of logs, maybe thousands, I don't know. I've done a lot of logs, and because you measure the pith on every log, it's just part of the routine, right? So you set everything up, boom, go grab your tape measure, drop it on, look at it, pick it up, and go down to the next one. So if you're asking about the tape measure side of things, it's just it's not, I'm not trying to do like as long as it's within a quarter inch or something like that. I just want it really close. I want it to be as close to parallel on the deck as possible. So I measure one end, measure the other end. Usually I'm already eyeballed it and tried to get it close. So I load the log up, and I usually lift the small end an inch or so, whatever I feel like it needs. So it's already lifted by the time I go down there. So I check it. Maybe this ends at 10 and that ends at 11. And I know, hey, just drop that end at about a half an inch or a little more. It should adjust a little bit, done, and away you go. The thing is I'm a production sawyer. So my goal is to go out there and produce as much as I can in the shortest period I can, while producing as good a quality product as I can. That doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. If you watch my videos, you've seen me make them. It happens. You go out on a job, you got 40 logs to do, and you split the pith on one or two logs. It happens. But that's the goal. So if you're asking about the tape, if that's the tape measure you're asking about, that's how. On the math otherwise, so if you're asking about cant size math, that's a whole nother can of worms. And I have to tell you that one of the challenges I face is that I mill what the customer wants. Now, I will advise them on certain different possibilities, but if the customer wants 1 3/4, that's what I'm going to mill. If they want 1 7/8, I'll mill that. If they want 2 inches, well, guess what? 2 1/4, they're going to get it 1 5/8. If they want me to mill 1.5 inches, I will mill 1.5 inches, but only after I strongly object to milling 1.5 inches, right? If somebody comes to me and says, I want 2x4s, 1.5 inches by 3.5, I'm going to tell them, okay, but you're going to get something about a 1/16 of an inch under 1.5 inches, and maybe an 1/8 of an inch under 3.5 by the time it's fully dried. So are you saying you want something that's less than dimensional that you buy in the store? And that's something that people often get wrong. It's dimensional that you buy. Nominal is the big stuff. So if you talk about 2x4s, nominal is 2 inches by 4 inches. Dimensional, 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So to the point that I was trying to get to, if you're milling 1 5/8, and then next job you mill 1 3/4, and then you mill 1 5/8, and then you mill 2 or 1 7/8 or whatever, you got to be flexible, and you got to plan your cants out. And you will notice that there's two things you might see me do. One is I can always figure where I'm going to split easily enough, because I just got to add 1/8 of an inch to whatever that is, right? So if it's if I'm milling 2x6s, I know that I need 12 1/8, right? But if you say, well, what do you need for 5 5/8, then I would have to go, well, that's 10 11/8, right? Which is 11 1/8. So I can do that pretty quickly. But what I do is I cheat. If you Seriously. You don't cheat? We should all cheat, right? Mm. What I do is I literally will write with a Sharpie on my simple set. This is my mic that's in my way right here for my voiceovers, but I will write with my with a Sharpie right on the simple set cover dimensions of cants for different sized lumber, so that because sometimes my brain is clicking away and I'm able to go, yep, I need this by this, and away you go. And some days, maybe I didn't sleep right. I don't know. Maybe I'm just confused. Some days I can't do the math. My brain just doesn't want to function. And when that happens, I've got it written on my simple set, or if it's going to be something different, I will literally write it in another spot on my simple. I'll write it right in front of my face, so that when I start building a can, I already know, well, I need a 15 and 7/8 by 12 and 3/8 or whatever. I write it down, and I'll write multiples of them down. So if you look at my simple set, anytime, if you watch, I think in my latest video I pan around and I think I even show the controls a little bit. Go back and look at that, and you will see writing all over the simple set, inside of the simple set cover. That's how you do it. That's how you do the math fast. All right. Hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. Southern Adirondack won your stickers. Oh, Southern Adirondack Outdoors won my stickers. How did I not know that? Dang it. I'll be honest, guys. I have to tell you something. So there are some great YouTube sawmill channels out there that I would love to spend more time watching myself. But because I took this job, what was I thinking, right? I have so much less time that I have a hard enough time even to get my own videos made. I'll always get at least one out a week, but watching other channels is tough. So I try to get out there and do that. And if you don't know, YouTube sawmill channels are actually kind of like a little community. We all typically talk to each other at one point or another. I talked to Dave over at Old Man and a Saw, and Steve over at MSD Making Sawdust, and Ben over at Dusty Ranch, and Rick and his brother over at Two Brothers Outdoors, and I've talked to Wilson Forest Lands, and Northwest Sawyer, and all these guys, and because it's a small community and it's a tough thing to do. You guys, if you run sawmills, you know the drill on sawmilling. You always want to learn something. You always want to find a new way to do something better. And it's the same with YouTube. So I try to. I don't always get to see out and watch them. So if Southern Adirondack, you've got the stickers, I hope you put them on your sawmill. That's awesome. So shout out to you guys. Awesome job. Belt tension gauge. Okay, let me keep going. Math. I got past that. Thanks, good buddy, for the shout out. You bet. Absolutely. Kilted Sawyer. Let's see. Experience and the way I'm trying to keep up with questions, guys. Let me read a few of these. Uh, Professional answer. Oh, you're quite welcome. Let's see. LT 40 wide is a 171-inch band. Oh yeah, that's quite a bit bigger than mine. These hobby sawyers kill me. Listen to the motor. Who cares about the sawdust? Hobby sawyers. Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe if you're under 1 million board feet, you're a hobby sawyer. Is that what it is? Listen to the motor. Yes, listen to the motor. Sawdust is important. So yellow hammer. That is southern, or that is Hobby Hardwoods, Alabama. I think he's milled more than 2 million board feet. So if he's a hobby sawyer, wow, then I don't know too many that aren't. Jake Dean over at Custom Sawyer, I think he was milling more than 1 million board feet a year, and those are the guys that I've learned from. Magic Man on Forestry Forum, he's a 2 million board foot club member. I'm below those guys. Any questions about that? I'll tell you, I've milled about 200,000 board feet, somewhere north of that. That's it. So I was averaging about 50,000 board feet a year as a part-time gig, and that's my plan for retirement as well. So, okay, let's see what else we got here. Oh, Dean, you did it again. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, explain tension in wood and why turning the cant helps. Okay, let's talk about that. So, thanks for the super sticker. Awesome again. Appreciate it. Tension in wood. So, by the way, did you know that there is tension and compression? Softwoods and hardwoods are different. So in one, it's tension, the other, it's compression. And honestly, right now, my brain's a little addled. So if one of you out there that does a lot of hardwoods can remind me, I want to say hardwoods is tension and softwoods is compression, but it's basically the same kind of thing. So, and you can see this in a log. Typically, a bent log is going to have either tension or compression fibers. Those are fibers that have grown differently as the log grew. And under a microscope, you can actually look at them and they're going to be different shape. They're going to be bigger. And so they have different characteristics. And when you're milling, you can mill some of that out. Now, the easiest way for me to try and I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you all the science behind how this works. I just know that if I put that log up on my mill and it's got a sweep to it, you'll hear me say hooks to the right. There's a reason for that. And that's because I'm looking at that and I'm saying that that log is going to bend to the right, laying horizontal on the mill. That means that those compression or tension fibers are laying horizontally, facing either left or right on the mill. And when I take that first cap cut off, it's not really going to be impacted by that stress in the log. But when I roll it 90 degrees and I take the hooks off, that is going to relieve some of that tension. What I do is I remind myself. So I go, sometimes I'll even say it. If the brain's a little addled, I'll go horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. I'll remind myself where the stress is because once you get a square cant, you might have forgotten. So that's one thing I do. I used to actually take a lumber crayon and write right on the log a line across the log in the direction of the stress. That's the bend that's happening in the log. Once you get your cant and you have it up on the deck, and you see me do this sometimes where I'll suddenly flip, I'll take a cut or two out and then I'll flip the cant 180 degrees. What's happening there is I take a cut out and you're relieving some of that tension. And when that happens, you get what I call a cant pop or a shift. And that is that the ends of the cant can lift a little bit as your band comes out the end. You'll actually notice that it'll kick the band a bit as it comes out the end, as the end of that cant lifts up from stress. Or as you come out the end, the whole log will actually lift in the center. You'll get a hump. So your log will take on some of that shape from that stress. What you actually have to do is you've got to relieve that stress. You got to take some of those fibers out of there. So typically what you'll see me do is, either way, if I see it hump in the center or it kicks on the ends, I'll come back and I'll drop it and I'll take a thinner piece out. And what I'm trying to do here is I want to take it and get it as flat as I can. So I'll take that, take one more slice out, see if it looks like it settled it, and it usually does. Then I'll flip it 180 degrees, take a slice out of the other side. Now, normally what I will do is I will take a thin cut. A lot of times I edit those out of my videos. Maybe I shouldn't, but that's just part of trying to keep the video down under that approximately 16-minute range. So it's hard to put everything in there. So I probably should make one where I show you that. I'm actually working on a video right now where I actually do that, where you could see me take that, quarter of an inch off the top, and then I flip it over. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll take that quarter inch off, then I'll drop it an inch, take that out, then I'll flip it. And it's a feel. It's just something that you do so often when you have a little bit of stress that you do that and flip it 180 degrees, flatten it out again, take another one, and then you watch it. And the key is here is to watch the cant. Pay attention to what it's doing. And you can see it, especially in a walk beside like mine. You can see what's happening. If you're driving down a log, you're going to know if the ends kick up like that on you. You'll know if it humps up in the center because that board will come off and you'll see it. It's really obvious usually. And so that's all you're doing. When you walk down the mill head like that, you're not just kind of, you guys, if you're running mills, you're paying attention to that cut. You're watching how's, and yes, I am paying attention to the sawdust. I want to know how's my sawdust coming out. Half the time my bloody chute's getting plugged up. So I gotta have to clean it. But you're watching the band. How's it running? You're listening to the motor. That's a big one. And the gentleman that mentioned it earlier, he's right. You've really got to learn to listen to the engine. You can tell if it's getting bogged down, if it's pushing a little harder. The other thing you watch is your band tension gauge, because it's going to drop as the band gets hot. So if you're pushing a band you start losing tension because it's getting hot and the band is stretching. Versus if you're picking up a lot of pitch and sawdust on the B57s, the belts, your tension's going to start going up. So that's just something you kind of have to pay attention to. So okay, let's see. Having a Woodmiser sharpener and setter are a game changer at my mill. Plus, I can make sure I have sharp band all the time. Setter comes with a tooth setting gauge for setting. 900. Whoa, wait a minute. Before I get to that, 900 hours in Portland for 45K on a LT70. I'd be wanting to take a look at that. Absolutely. That, I mean, right now, I think for me to kit out an LT70 the way I want it would probably be pushing 100 grand. I don't know. I'd want to look at that one. 900 hours is low. That's not a heavily used one. So okay, Woodmiser sharpener and setter. So I use Woodmiser Resharp because honestly, I just figure that I already. I'm one of those guys that likes to do a lot of things. So, for example, if you don't know, I actually have a Jeep and off-grid channel as well. I used to combine them all on this channel, but I realized that this audience really is mostly interested in the sawmill stuff. So I started moving the Jeep and the off-grid cabin to another channel. And so I like to go camping, jeeping. Like I even make bread. I made like 6 loaves this weekend, maybe more. And I just do a lot of other things. So for me, I've decided that the cleaning, sharpening, and setting my bands, I'm gonna let Woodmiser do it. It costs me roughly $10 a band, and it's so easy. I live 210 miles or something from Woodmiser, and I get they give me a FedEx or UPS sticker, and the box comes to me. I take the sticker, I put it out up here. I bet I got one right there. Look at that. That's an older one because that's a FedEx. They've switched it to UPS. But so I have those already, and I just get all my bands, stick them in a box, drop them off at UPS, and go home. And depending on how busy they are, I get them back sometime 2, 3 weeks, a month, whatever later. But I have about 75 bands, so I can send 15 off, have 15 coming back, and I still got 45 in the shop. So, it's not uncommon for me to take 30 or 45 bands on a job when I go out and hit the road. So, all right, let's see how much I've got. Arrowhead. I didn't keep track very well at all on the LT10. On the LT40, I had great records up to 100,000, and then I joined the Woodmiser 100,000 board foot club. I still continued to keep records, but I did drop a log on my foot. Yes, folks, this job can sometimes, slow you down. And maybe I should tell you that story. So, like I said, yes, any questions, I will answer them. If I can answer your questions, it doesn't have to be about sawmilling. So if you want to know YouTube questions, I'll answer those too. But so anyway, then I moved. And when we moved here to Pasco from Moses Lake, where we were living at the time, somehow I lost my spreadsheet that had all of those jobs on it. So I've tried to recreate it. So when I say somewhere north of 200,000, it's because I've lost about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of records. It took me 2 years to get to 100,000 board feet, and I've had my mill for over 7 years. This mill, and that 100,000 board feet was on the 40, not the LT10. I did about 20,000 on the 10, and that's a guesstimate because I didn't keep good records on the 10. So I used to post them though in Forestry Forum all the time. So I'm up there somewhere. I don't think I'll ever try to do the Million Board Foot Club. I know Kevin Bales, who's on Facebook, Crossroads on Forestry Forum. He's probably hitting about 1 million board feet, and we started milling about the same time, but he mills more than I do. For me, it's been more of a part-time gig than a full-time gig. So, okay, where are we at here? Let's see. Kilted, sorry, I've been in contact with Thomas O'Brien at TC Sawmills. Was wondering if you have ran other brands or of brands other than Woodmiser. No, I actually haven't. So other than chainsaw mills, I started on an LT10. So I'm a member of Forestry Forum. You guys have heard me say that a million times. I talked to those guys there, and it was talking to guys on Forestry Forum and frankly watching some videos that convinced me to buy the LT10, and the price was perfect. They were fairly local. So it's like buying a tractor, right? If you've got a Timber King store nearby and Wood-Miser's 1,000 miles away, I'd probably look seriously at Timber King, because you really do want good support. Support's everything, right? You can buy a Coyote tractor or you can buy a Kubota, but if the Mahindra tractor store is 20 miles away and the other guys are 500 miles away, you're better off getting the Mahindra because you got a local shop. That's just my philosophy. So but I got the LT10, and Wood-Mizer was so fantastic on their support. I'm telling you, you can't beat Wood-Mizer customer service support. I can call James up. He might not be available right away. He will call me back. So if I have a problem, I've called James in the field. James remembers, he actually tells the story of coming to my house in Moses Lake and doing mill alignment for me back in 2017 in my driveway, and he'd never done that before, and he's never done it since. He's never gone to a mill that he had to work on where there weren't any logs. So, and he remembers me, but all right, where are we at here? So DC Mills, let's see, that would be great. Video demonstrating how to do that, working with the stress in the log. Yeah, I will have to do. Hey, Wilson Forestlands, nice to see you, and congrats on your channel. It has been taken off crazy. So good job, guy. I've been really impressed. I've watched it. So really good work out there. Kilted Sawyer, he's doing some awesome band testing on his channel. Did you know? Didn't know if you'd seen it or not. TC Sawmills. I'm not sure. I may have seen that channel, but I honestly can't remember. Send me a link. I'll have to check him out. Unless he's the guy that did the drag race. So there was a guy that did a drag race between Turbo 739 and a Joe Main 739 similar one, and some other band. And I had some actually commented on it, and he came back and he said, yeah, I know, it wasn't perfect, but I do want to say that I think you can overthink things too much. So earlier on, one of the things I said is pick a band you like and go with it. I know a lot of guys. I'm not quite that bad, but I could be. I mean, I just told you I had 9s, 10s, 7s, 4s, 39s, 47s, you name it, right? But I will tell you that I have told Wood-Mizer, anytime I send bands into them, if they're bad and they got to replace them, send me back a 7-degree double hard 1.5 inches. Not even a 747 or 739, just a straight 7. Because I've decided to make that decision. I'm going with 7s. I'll have a box of 10s and some double hard, or a box of 4s and some double hard, or bimetal, 10s. And that's it, right? One box of bimetal 10s, because the bimetals are very useful for some things. A box of 4s, because they're really good for the really wide stuff, and everything else is going to be 7s. And I'm switching everything to 1.5 inches, which you can't do on the LT35s. I'm sorry. You kind of can, but I was asked that question last time. I went to Wood-Mizer and they said, yeah, you could technically do it, but it would be very hard to get the bands on and off. They're not really set up for that, same as the LT15. So you're kind of stuck with those. If you go to a 40, you can go to 1.5 inch bands. You do not have to change anything. I know I see all the time online, guys will say, oh yeah, you have to adjust this or adjust that or realign the head or change out the guide wheels. No, you do not. Wood-Mizer flat out says you don't. And I can personally tell you, I have milled a lot of lumber with 1.5 inch bands as I started to switch to them. And I haven't changed anything, and it works fine. So, all right, let's see. Band testing. Hey, Mike Wilson, Forestlands, love your channel. Good for you. How much extra do you cut for dimensional lumber? I've been doing an 1/8 of an inch extra on width and thickness. Is there a formula rule? Yes. So somewhere I have posted. I have to find this for you. For SPF, the expected drying dimension, or whatever you want to call it, the amount of shrinkage you're going to get on SPF for 2x4 is a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So if you figure that in thickness, you're going to lose a 1/16 of an inch in drying on SPF, that spruce pine fir, then you can kind of extrapolate from that. And I did actually have the numbers at one time. It's less than an eighth of an inch, but it could be more depending on how wide you're going. So I go by a 16th and an eighth, and I mill an eighth and an eighth. I know a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys will say I mill 1 3/4. A lot of guys will say I mill, inch and 5/8 or whatever. I will mill to what my customers want, but I always advise them to mill an eighth over, in at least in width and thickness. And if you're milling ponderosa pine, which I mill a lot of ponderosa pine, you might only get a 32nd of an inch in thickness lost in shrinking. In yeah, brain's not working. So yeah, you'll lose about a less than a 16th of an inch in ponderosa pine. Whereas like a Doug fir, you're going to lose a 16th of an inch pretty much. And then in your width, it really is going to depend on how wide and where. So if you've got like quarter sawn, it's not going to shrink as much as a flat sawn piece. The stuff that's closer to the bark may shrink more than the stuff that's closer to the center of the log. So everything's a little different. So, but what I do, wow, Dean, you're awesome. You're killing me, buddy. Thank you very much. That's awesome. But anyway, so my rule of thumb is no less than an eighth over or under, sorry. So in other words, if you want 1.5 inches, I'm going to mill 1 5/8. You've got to convince me to do something less than that if you want it less. If you want 1.5 inches as my customer, I will do it, but I am certainly going to push for 1 5/8 by 3 5/8, 6 5/8, or whatever. So I have customers that are woodworkers, and they say, you know what, this is what I want. Okay, you're paying me by the hour. I'll do whatever you want, but I'm going to advise them of that. So now, bear in mind, I do probably only 5 to 10% of the wood that I mill is hardwoods. So when I do hardwoods, I always try to mill as big as I can, right? If somebody thinks they want 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 stuff, I'll tell them to mill 9/4. Now, notice I said 9/4 and not 2 1/4 inches. Believe it or not, there are two standards, and one is the softwood standard and one is the hardwood standard. Softwoods are actually measured by the inch. So inch and an eighth, 1 1/4, 1.5 inches, 1 5/8. Hardwoods, or at least when it comes to milling, you typically speak in quarters. So 4/4, 5/4, 8/4, whatever. Funny thing is, my son, who works for Camphor, big mill, they can produce like 1 million board feet in a shift. He laughs and he says, everything's by the inch or 32nd of an inch or whatever. So you can call it 4/4 all you want, but I'm milling 1 inch. So anyway, all right, where are we at here? We didn't even talk about me dropping a log on my foot yet. Hey, thanks for being here, Arrowhead Woodman. Love having you, man. Glad you could make it. Okay. You just put a deposit on that LT70. Damn. Yeah. Send me a picture. Post it on. Find me on MeWe or Instagram or Facebook. I would love to see it. Give me some more details. I think that sounds like a pretty good deal. I can't imagine that 45K for a 900-hour LT70 isn't a good deal. It might need some maintenance, but boy, I don't know. That sounds like a pretty good deal today. So, all right, you just shared his link in a message. Oh, for TC. Okay, I'll check it out. All right. So, who wants to hear about me dropping a log? I should tell you. Oh gosh, let's see. Some great, good chat. Got to go. Hey, good night, Rick, and if your brother's there, him too. You guys have a great night. Do I plan on regularly scheduled lives? I'm thinking about it. Honestly, guys, lives are well, it's for you. And so the question really becomes, do you want me to plan on regularly scheduled lives? So if you do, then the answer is yes. I do this channel for you guys. So if you want lives, I'm going to do them more often. I enjoy doing them. I won't lie to you. But yeah, absolutely. If you guys would like to do it, I'd love to do it. I want to do a live. I have to tell you this. So there are some YouTube guys on here. Too bad Rick already left, but there are some other Southern Adirondack. You've got, you got Craig on here, Wilson Forest Lands. And, I talk to Dave and Steve and all these guys all the time. I want to do a live with at least 4 of us, right? 3 or 4 anyway, all together at the same time. Now, Dave, Steve, and Ben and I talked about doing this about a year ago. and we just never managed to put it together. And we were looking at different ways of trying to do it. It wasn't going to be a live. We were thinking of doing like a Zoom type meeting and recording it and then using that to make some content for you, because collaborating for Sawyer's is a little tough to do, right? It's kind of hard to do when somebody's down in Southern Oregon and I'm up here in Eastern Washington. Now, I have been known to travel, but I'm thinking of doing a live. I've got some software. I just need to figure it out. And I've been thinking about doing that and doing like two or three other Sawyers on at the same time, just taking questions and answering and having a good time. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a note. We'll work it out. Um, all right. So the log. So first of all, I am a busted up old jarhead, and I uh, I was having trouble. So back in 20, I want to say 2018. I think it was 2018 or 19. I can't remember, but I started having trouble with my shoulder, and I thought I had ripped a shoulder muscle or something, moving big logs. I did a job where the guy had bought 150 logs, and every log was 24 inches at least on one end. Big end, small end, didn't matter. And he bought them from a plywood mill that could only mill logs that were under 24 inches. So he bought like 150 logs for $1,500, something like that. It was a pretty good deal. And all these logs were also kind of dry. So you want to talk about changing bands? I changed a band per log. Now, mind you, I was getting about 500 board feet an hour. So I was changing a band an hour. I literally went through 7 and 8 bands a day. It was insane. And so anyway, I came away from that. My shoulder was a bit sore. I was having trouble with my shoulder. And I took a couple of weeks or whatever, a month off. And then I had a local guy reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to come do some milling for him. So of course, right? Local, I'm going to try to do it. So I go to his house. We figure out a plan. I bring the mill out, and I had to like back the mill down his driveway, which was kind of a little bit steep, and not much longer than the mill was itself. And then we turn the mill 90 degrees, set the mill up down in front of his garage, and then drag logs with his truck over up onto the sidewalk and kind of turn them with hand can hooks and that kind of thing, and then rolled them down the driveway onto the mill. You could see where this is going, probably, right? So it was like 105 out, and it was like typical, Eastern Washington weather. And if you don't know about Eastern Washington, it is dry and hot. It's desert out here. It's not like, if you live in the Portland area or southern area, or if you're from somewhere else across the country and you think of Washington as the evergreen state. You've heard me, if you've watched my channel, you've heard me call it the Ever Brown state. But it gets hot out here. It's not uncommon to see 110 or 115 degrees here. And it's very dry, very deserty. But in any case, so we're milling away, and we get to this last log. And this is a big log. It's about a 900-pound ponderosa pine with some big flat spots from big branches that were cut off close to the bark. And he was having trouble trying to roll it. And I grabbed my can hook, and I came over. And from the top side, I really didn't want to roll it, because I was afraid of just letting it crash into the mill. I didn't want to damage the mill, right? Well, and I'm not wearing steel toes, so you can see where this is going, right? So I get around to the bottom side, and I start getting the log to lift up on this flattened out knot, and all of a sudden it let go. Now my plan was to get the heck out of the way, right? Well, I didn't get out of the way fast enough, and that log went pow and just landed right on my foot. Broke my toe, crushed a few other toes, and it was so hot. I was probably already dehydrated. That happened. I went into shock a little bit. I was like feeling dizzy and ended up having to go sit down in the shade. The guy was he was like a cardiac nurse or something, so it was fine. It was fine. I got water in me. That was the key. And then I said, okay, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. And I don't remember. I might have milled that log up. I'm thinking I did, because I got it to the mill. I don't remember now because it's been several years. But I ended up having to take the rest of the summer off because between my shoulder and my foot. So, when you hear me say I've got 7.5 years on this mill, and over at about 13 plus milling, but I'm somewhere north of 200. Well, I went from milling 50,000 board feet approximately a year to dropping to 5 or 10 for 2 or 3 years, and then cranking back up again. So there you go. All right, what else we got? So it looks like Mr. Wilson Forestlands. I know your name too, and I can't think of names. I'm terrible with names, by the way. So guys, I will do my best to try to remember all your names when you chat to me, but I'm terrible with names. I really am. I barely. I'm working with some guys. As I said, I took this job, which is one of the reasons why you don't see as many videos out right now. One a week. I'm committed to that at least. Sometimes two, but I still don't know all their names. I've been out there 3 months now, and I don't know their names. So, all right, what else we got? I want to cover a couple few things for you. Make sure I covered everything before we go. So, cabin stuff. So, if you don't know, I do have another channel. Actually, I have two. There, that's a hint. I wonder if anybody knows about the third one. But so the other one is the one I mentioned earlier, where Michael. Yes, thank you. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned earlier is that I split off all my Jeep and my cabin stuff onto the old Jarhead's Jeep or off road, the old Jarhead off road and off grid. When my wife and I went up there about last weekend, we went up, and it was an adventure. Let me tell you. So there's been more snow up there than we've had in the 13 plus years we've owned that property. I actually dragged. Think about this. I dragged my LT40 up there in February. It was middle of February of 2016. There's 2 feet of snow up there right now. Excuse me. And so we go up there. We went up to just spend a weekend up there, and we hadn't been able to get there because the neighbor actually got snowed in. He's got a snow plow and everything else, but he got snowed in. There were 4 and 5 foot drifts of snow, and it's up at 3,200 feet, right? So even with a Jeep that's well equipped, you discretion is the better part of valor, right? You decide, man, maybe I'll wait. So I'd gotten a hold of him, my neighbor, and he'd said, yeah, roads are finally clear, but your place, I don't know. Maybe with 4 chains, you might be able to get in. Well, I've only got 2. And we got lockers front and rear, right? They're Jeep Rubicons, 35-inch tires. They're lifted the whole 9 yards. No problem. So we get up there. I got through the 3-foot snowdrift that was blocking our driveway. Just drove right through it. That was no problem. Hit my driveway and didn't go anywhere. And I was kind of pushing it forward, backing up, pushing it forward, backing up, and watching the bank, which drops about 50 feet below us on the left-hand side, driver's side. And I'm watching the rear end start to slide in that direction constantly, like, pull forward, slide to the left, pull forward, slide to the left. And I went, that's it. We're not doing this. This is crazy. And I didn't want to pull the winch out and try to actually winch up there either, right? So I said to heck with it, backed it out, and ended up, we had to hike in. So we hiked in, ended up plowing enough of the road out that I could get the Jeep up there. And we had a great weekend, but my batteries were dead. So I had to get them charged back up again. They're not going to last that much longer, so I'm going to have to fix those. So anyway, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, that video I'm trying to work on, and I hope to have that out next weekend too. So I've got a new video, sawmill video, that's actually mostly edited right now. I just have to finish that one up, and I'll get that one out for Friday. And then, of course, some Jeep stuff that I'm working on. I'll try to get that out. Oh, next videos. So besides fixing the hydraulics and doing the laser, which those are coming out, I've also got a maple to mill that I mentioned earlier. I've got an elm that I may or may not do yet. I've posted pictures of it somewhere. Think Facebook, Instagram, Forestry Forum. I'm still debating that one only because I'd have to mill it on the street in the middle of town. So the customer's going to have to understand I'm going to make a really big mess in the middle of town, and it's going to be his responsibility to clean it up. So maybe do that one. I'll have to quarter it with my chainsaw first. Then I have a tulip. So if you haven't done tulip, well, guess what? I'm going to be doing something, so that's going to be fun too. And then I have, so the current job that I'm showing you now, this was in the fall. That one, the next video, I'm actually finishing up day 1. And then day 2 is a short day. So I'll be doing that one. That won't take very long to get through that one. And day 2 is kind of fun. So to give you a heads up, the customer only wanted like 2,000 linear feet of 1x4s and then a little bit of other stuff. And they were going to try to give me 8 hours worth of work. So the first day I finished just under 7 hours worth of milling. But their neighbors came along and said, hey, can we get some? And so I actually ended up milling for somebody else the next day. So that's kind of fun. And then I do the Prescott job, which is in Eastern Washington, 50 miles from home. I mentioned that on my last live. And that one is a lot of black locust and dry, rock hard. If you don't know, black locust is the hardest North American hardwood. and when it's dry, it's even harder. So let me tell you what, it thin, thin sawdust because it's so dry, hard as a rock. So I'm eating up bands like crazy. So black locust, black walnut, some absolutely gorgeous black walnut, and I'm going to show it to you. And then a big, huge maple that was 43 inches at one end and over 56 on the other end that I had to quarter with the chainsaw. And we ended up milling 3/4 of it. 1/4 was a little too rotten, so we scrapped that one. But we actually had to use a tractor to move it and all kinds of stuff. So I'll be showing you that one. So I've got those to do plus the other ones I mentioned. And then in the spring, I'm going to be getting the sawmill back up to the cabin because come hell or high water, guys, I have got to mill up some D logs. So I started milling D logs. Oh gosh, it was a year ago in March or April, and I didn't get a chance to get back to it. So if you run a portable sawmill yourself, or even a non-portable sawmill, you know that you end. It's like the mechanic with the car that he never gets to fix because he fixes everybody else's car. So I haven't gotten back to milling D logs for my cabin edition, and I need to mill flooring and roof rafters and all kinds of stuff. And I've got an outhouse I got to fix and put a new roof on and some new posts on and side it. And so I've got all kinds of stuff out at the cabin that I need to mill. So that mill's going up there come hell or high water this spring. And I'm going to get a bunch of that done too. So that's kind of a heads up of what's coming up. Alabama. Hey, thank you. Becky Martin. Awesome to have you. I'm glad you joined us. Okay, let me see what else I got. D-Logs cabin, parts to hit. Okay, so we got the parts for the laser. All right. So what other questions you got for me? I did not set a time limit today, so I've been at it for an hour and six, but happy to keep going. So what other questions you got? Dean, you're doing an awesome. I mean, you're treating me like gold here, buddy. All these super thanks. Again, thank you for those. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out. So if you got some questions, your top's on the list, buddy. Ask away. Anything I can answer. And anybody else. If you want to know about sawmilling, YouTubing, editing, software I use, why I do certain things, ask away. I'm all open. Or what bourbon I'm drinking tonight. All right, what else we got? If not, I might have to call it a night. It's pretty quiet. Let's see. Becky, Michael, any questions? I know Rick's gone. Edward's getting a great deal on an LT70. Edward, go look up Hobby Hardwoods, Alabama. He's running an LT70, and that guy knows what the heck he's doing. And if you're not on Forestry Forum, get on Forestry Forum. I will tell you, there are some guys on there that, look, I learned from those guys. And one of the reasons that I do the videos I do is to give back. I just think it's a great way to do things. I mean, I had to learn somewhere. I learned from other guys that helped me out in the old medium of doing that, which was the forums, right? Before Facebook really took off and killed a lot of forums. And forestry forum is still big. So that's where I would go. Every time I'd go out and run my mill, and I would come back and I'd say, guys, what should I do here? And they would answer those questions. And I just decided, you know what, I was going to do videos like that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these lives, is because I figure, you know what, why not give back the same way? So I'm here to answer your questions. And I will tell you, I don't know everything. I'm not the end all be all best sawyer in the world. I'm not in the 50 million board foot club or anything like that. I have milled a lot, and I've been doing it for more than a dozen years. So I have a little bit of experience. But my goal is to share with you, and I'll share with you my mistakes too. Why not, right? What are your other channel names? I missed the first part of the stream. You mentioned them. So if you look up the old Jarhead, you probably will find the other two. One of them is the old Jarhead off-road and off-grid. Now that one doesn't have a lot of videos on it because I just started moving those over. And I've got some that I haven't moved, and I'm going to be doing more content over there. So that is the off-grid cabin. If you don't know, I got the sawmill actually to do the cabin. In fact, I've been meaning to do a video, and you guys tell me whether you'd like to hear this or not. I've been meaning to do a video on how I paid for my LT40 in 13 months. Paid for, done, done. Brand new to paid off in 13 months. And so I've been thinking about doing that video. And to be honest with you, that actually starts with the LT10 that I convinced my wife to let me buy. We had like $3,500 in savings. That was it. And we were building this cabin, and you don't know this. So here's a little thing that you don't know. I was a top dart player, and I actually ran a dart website that was number one in the world for a while. So I'm kind of familiar with computer stuff. And that website, I had sponsors on the website paying me to advertise on my website. So I would take that money and I would go and I would buy supplies to build the cabin. And we had this last 3,500 bucks in the bank, and I convinced my wife to let me buy an LT10 because I was looking at 5 grand to put knotty pine paneling inside the cabin if I went and I bought the knotty pine. So I said, look, it's $5,000 to buy the knotty pine, or $3,500 I could buy a sawmill with 10 bands, right? So mm, we bought the sawmill, set it up in the snow. I literally put 4x4s on the ground in the snow. I hauled it up to the cabin. Now, I mentioned February earlier. There seems to be a trend there. If I get an LT50 or an LT40 Super or something like that, I'm going to have to get it in February because that just seems to be my thing. But so we actually towed that LT10 on a little trailer behind my Jeep with 4 chains on it, hauled it up to the cabin in February, set it up in the snow, and started learning how to run the sawmill. Now, I'd done some chainsaw milling the year before, and it was just too slow. So that's what started it all. I used that little LT10 to build, to make most of the paneling for the inside of the cabin, and then started making all kinds of lumber with it, and eventually put it on a trailer, and then eventually sold it to buy the LT40. So, all right. Let's see. Other channel. Oh, the other channel still. I haven't mentioned that. How do I decide how to turn the log to reduce the stress? Okay, we'll talk about that here in a second. So the other channels, the other one, believe it or not, I actually made to help some people out on how to make bread. And it's called the Old Jarhead Bakes. And there's only like 3 or 4 videos there. I don't really spend a lot of time with that one. I'd like to do more, but again, I'm back to working full time, so it makes it really hard. And so those are older videos that I did before I really got serious about trying to improve my video quality in general, right? How to make videos for YouTube. But if you ever want to know how to make bread, I actually make sourdough without using any measuring implements whatsoever. I make a lot of bread. I make my own bread. I don't buy bread. I haven't bought bread in years. So that's what that one is. Now, to the actual sawmilling question, how do I decide how to turn the log to reduce the stress? So I learned from a gentleman that goes by Magic Man on Forestry Forum to start with the stress horizontal and the bend of the log to the right. That by starting that way, the stress is always the same on every log. And you have to remember, I'm a production sawyer. So what I do, I'm always trying to produce as much good quality lumber as I can in the shortest period of I can. And what that requires is it requires what I call economy of movement, right? Less movement. So if you always start with the stress to the right or the hooks to the right, stress is horizontal, it will always be that way on every log. That way it makes it easier to remember as you go through milling logs all the time that it always starts the same. So when I put a log up on the deck, I start rolling the log, and you'll notice in my videos, you'll see me rolling the log. So boom, up on the deck, and I immediately start rolling it. So you'll see other videos where a guy will put a log on the deck, he'll start milling it. Generally with mine, you won't see me do that. The only time you might see that is if the log is really, really straight, or if I can't roll it because it's really big, something like that. Or if when I mill it, when I get it, or sorry, when I roll it up on the deck, I automatically see that it's already sitting the way I want it to. And I'm going to do that because I can tell what happens when, when I start rolling a log, you'll know if you've got hooks to the right, it's going to want to roll down, right? It's, you start pulling your log clamp off, the log's going to try to roll down on you to the right? Clockwise. So when I get it set up that way, I know right now stress is horizontal. So when I'm cut that top off and I roll 90 up into my side supports, stress is now vertical. That means it wants to cup. The boards are going to want to come off with what we call a face bend. So if I were to start cutting right there and just cut the log down with one flat side, they're going to be face bent. Everything's going to be face bent all the way down. That is desired for anything that you want to have flat, meaning if you're making studs, your studs should have face bends, not crowns. So knowing that your stress is vertical, right? It's going like this. It's either the ends are kicking up or the center's kicking up. And if it's the first roll, the ends are kicking up, right? And then if you roll it down, it's now horizontal. You take that side off, you flip it up again 90 degrees. Now it's going to want to do this, right? So if you take your boards off from there all the way down, every board is going to want to have a bit of a face bend to it, but it's not going to crown. And studs should not crown. If you have studs that crown, you're going to have a flat wall, or you're not going to have a flat wall, right? Your wall is going to have that bend to it. It's going to go like this, and you can't take that up with drywall. You'd have to put that on a table saw and cut that out. Now you can, if you're making different stuff with it, you can sometimes, if there's crowns, you know what, wood will move. That's what they made joiners for, right? You have multi-$1,000 joiners and things to straighten wood out. There's a reason for that. But you try to mitigate that. Now, if you're building rafters or floor joists, a crown is actually somewhat desirable because it's like, think of it like an arch, right? An arch is stronger than a flat beam. So if you have a flat beam, that's not as strong as if you have an arched beam. So a lot of times, if you ever around framing carpenters, which I used to frame when I was much younger, you always hear crown up, crown up. That's on rafters and joists. It's always crown up. So you will look at that 2x12 or whatever it is you're making your rafter out of or your floor joist out of, and you'll look for the crown. And you want to put that up because that's going to be the strongest. So when you're rolling that log, that's what you're paying attention to. I'm always starting with it horizontal. So then I'm vertical, horizontal, vertical again. And that's what I'm looking for. Now, deciding to roll after that to reduce that stress. And I mentioned this a bit earlier, but I'm happy to do it again. But you're going to see it when the band comes out of the end of the log is typically when you're going to notice it. Either the log will hump up in the center a little bit, or it'll pop on the ends. And when you see that hump in the center or the pop on the ends, you're going to immediately, when you see that, you've got to tell yourself, it's got stress. I need to relieve some. So you come back, just skim cut it enough to try to take that out, then drop it and take the next board out right away. Because usually if it's really bad, it can happen right away. But a lot of times, if you skim it flat, it's already moved, right? And it's clamped down. So you skim it flat, you take a board, now flip it over. The other side is going to have that stress in it. So you've got to skim that side and take a piece out. And you're just watching. That's all you're doing. You're just watching every cut and seeing, is it moving when I come out the end? If it moves, you know you're going to need to flatten it, take a cut, flip it. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, any other questions for you guys? We're at an hour and 20 minutes tonight. Good information on your LT35. Well, mine's an LT40, but now if you've got an LT35, I got something to tell you. And you might not have heard this. I don't know who else is on here that may have an LT35, but if you have an LT35, really, even if you have an LT40, 50, or 70, do not leave the head over the power bus bar. That's the copper bar near the front of the mill. On the LT35s and the older LT40s, and maybe even that older LT70, though I think that's a little newer, so it's probably okay. By older, I mean 90s or earlier. They didn't have like a solenoid or something in there that stopped the power from feeding the hydraulics, even with the key off. So on an LT35, and you can try this, pull your key out when the head is over that power bus bar, and I'll bet you could still run your hydraulics. Go down there and run your hydraulics. That's how mills get stolen. So if you've got an LT35 or an older LT40 or whatever, do not leave your mill head over that power bar. Also, hint to what's coming up, you shouldn't anyway. And the reason you shouldn't is the contact that rides along that bus bar is it's got two springs behind it that push it against that bar. Modern metallurgy shouldn't cause this to happen, but it can. Those springs can weaken over time. So the more you leave your head over that power bus bar, those springs can weaken and start to draw that contact point off the power bus bar. And if it's not making a good solid contact, your hydraulics won't work. Now those contacts, about 600 hours, they kind of get pretty worn anyway. So according to Wood-Mizer, that's around the time you replace them. And most guys I've talked to that have also had to replace them, they're around that. Now I'm over that, but and I haven't had to replace it before. I've just had to clean it. Now I don't have a lot of hours on my mill. This mill is still relatively new. I think it's at 650 hours right now. So it's I mean it's 7.5 years old, but I call it still new. So all right, any other questions we got here? I see we're up to 18 people. Hey, thanks for joining. If you're just joining, I've been at it for an hour and 20 minutes, so you may have to go back to the beginning and start from there. Hopefully, you enjoy it. But I'm about ready to call it a night, guys. So, any last questions? I'll keep an eye over here on the right to see if there's anything else you got for me. But thanks for joining. And again, if you want to see more lives, just drop it in the comments below on the live or in the chat, whichever. Let me know on the channel. I do put some polls up. I have some out there on my YouTube page. So if you go to actually to the old Jarhead on YouTube, I've got some polls up there. You can take those polls. So if you want to see more lives, I enjoy doing them. I'm happy to do it. And for Arrowhead, who's not here now, he's working. I'm gonna try to do one maybe on a Friday too. So if there's nights that are better for you guys that you like to see them, hey, I'll do it then. But again, when it comes to doing these, all questions are on the table. So if you want to know what kind of a mic I use, hey, I'm gonna answer it. I don't care. Happy to answer questions for you, whatever it is. So, any other questions? Hey, Semper Fi, Rob's Woods and Custom Sawmilling. Semper Fi, brother. I'll have to check your channel out. All right, time to get the drawing board for the old Jarhead action figure. No, I think Bourbon 30 drink is good. I like that one. And if you guys don't know, we were going back and forth earlier today. I think it was on Facebook, was it? I can't remember now. Maybe it was here. No, it was here. It was on YouTube, and there was some comments about doing some old Jarhead stuff, and one of them was my favorite was the old Jarhead, so the Bourbon 30 whiskey for sawdust eaters and sawyers everywhere. All right, folks, listen, y'all have a great night. I appreciate you being here. Dean, once again, thanks for those super stickers. Holy cow, awesome. I really appreciate it. And my email's out there on my YouTube, so shoot me an email. Let me know, Dean. I'm happy to take any questions you got. And heck, for those super stickers, I'd give you my cell phone number. You can text me questions all day long if you need. I'm here to help, guys. That's what I enjoy doing. I don't know everything, but what I do know, I'm happy to share with you, even if that's stuff like dropping logs on my foot. So, y'all have a great night. Thanks for being here. The old Jarhead out.